All right, so today we're going to talk about the Certified Kubernetes Administrator certification, the CKA. But not just as some test you have to study for. We're going to look at it as a professional blueprint, really a guide to achieving excellence in the world of cloud computing. Let's dive in and see what it takes to become a real master of orchestration.
To really get the CKA, you first have to understand the world it lives in, cloud native computing. It's a really modern way of doing things. Basically, you build your software in these small, independent pieces, you wrap them up in containers, and then you manage them all dynamically. And the CKA? It's the gold standard certification from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the CNCF, which is the group that stewards Kubernetes and this entire ecosystem.
So what does this blueprint actually look like? Well, this chart here lays it all out. This is the official curriculum for the CKA exam. You've got 5 core domains. And just look at that, troubleshooting takes the biggest piece of the pie by far, a whopping 30%. We're going to use this chart as our roadmap as we explore each of these key areas.
So let's start where it all begins, right at the beginning. I mean, before you can do anything cool, before you can run any applications, you need a cluster. So this first major section is all about laying that solid, secure foundation from the ground up.
And it is a critical foundation. A full quarter of the exam, 25%, is focused on this. Why? Well, it's simple. Everything that comes after it, your apps, your networking, your storage, it all depends on a well-built, properly configured cluster. You just can't cut corners here.
The process of bringing a cluster to life follows a pretty logical path. First, you get your machines ready, right? That's the infrastructure prep. Then you use tools like kubectl to actually install and bootstrap the whole thing. But, and this is key, it doesn't stop there. A huge part of the job is managing its life cycle. We're talking upgrades, backups, and just making sure it stays happy and healthy over time. Okay, so this slide here shows the skills that really take a basic cluster and make it ready for the real world, for production. You got to manage role-based access control, or RBAC, which is really just a fancy way of saying who gets to do what, super important. You need to build a highly available control plane, so there's no single point of failure. And then you need to get your head around these extension interfaces. CNI for networking, CSI for storage, CRI for containers. They're like the plug-in slots that make Kubernetes so incredibly flexible. So now our cluster is built. We're ready to get to its primary mission, its whole reason for being, running applications and managing their data. This is where the magic really starts to happen. One of the first things you'll do is configure those applications. And Kubernetes gives you 2 main tools for this, and it is vital to know the difference. Config maps are for your everyday, non-sensitive stuff like a URL or a port number. But for anything sensitive, and I mean anything, passwords, API keys, tokens, you must use secrets. They're stored more securely, and getting this wrong is a huge security risk. Okay, so your apps are configured. How do they talk to each other? And maybe more importantly, how does the outside world talk to them? This is all handled by something called services. And as you can see here, there are 3 main flavors. Cluster IP is just for internal traffic, apps talking amongst themselves. Node port opens up a specific port on every single machine in your cluster, and load balancer, that's the one that hooks into your cloud provider to create a proper external load balancer, making your app available to the whole world. Now, a lot of apps need to store data, but containers are meant to be disposable, right? So what happens to your data when a container restarts? Well, we solve this with persistent storage. Think of a persistent volume, or a PV, as just a chunk of storage that's available in the cluster. Your application then uses a ticket, a persistent volume claim, or PVC, to request that storage and attach it. This is brilliant because it separates the life of your data from the life of your application. It's absolutely essential for databases or anything stateful. We've built the cluster, we've deployed our apps, everything is humming along perfectly, until it isn't. And that brings us to the most heavily weighted, and I would argue the most important, real-world skill for any Kubernetes admin, the art of troubleshooting. Yeah, let's just let that number sink in. 30%. Nearly 1/3 of the entire CKA exam is focused on one thing. Can you figure out what's wrong and fix it, probably while you're under pressure? That tells you everything you need to know about what's expected from a certified administrator in the real world. So let's put you in the hot seat for a second. An alert goes off. Your main application is down. Panic starts to creep in. Where do you even begin to look? A certified admin doesn't just start guessing. They have a system. And here is that system. A A CKA's approach is like a diagnostic checklist. You'd start by checking the health of the core cluster components themselves. Then, you dig into the logs, see what the containers are screaming about. From there, you investigate the networking. Is traffic even flowing the way it should? And finally, you monitor resources to see if maybe a component is just starved for CPU or memory. It's a methodical hunt, not a frantic guess.
So as we wrap this up, let's reframe all of this a little bit. These aren't just separate sections on an exam. When you put them all together, what you really have is a powerful, cohesive toolkit for building, for securing, and for maintaining modern cloud-native systems. And this is the core idea right here. The CKA certification is so much more than just a piece of paper. It gives you the mental models and the hands-on skills you need to become a true master orchestrator, someone who can confidently wrangle the incredible complexity of these distributed systems. It really is the blueprint. So we've walked through the 5 key domains. We've seen how they all fit together to build this comprehensive skill set of a Kubernetes administrator. The blueprint is clear. The only question left is, what will you build with it?